everybody, my name is Eric Hopkins and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're finding us for the very first time, please click that like and subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get all the notifications about when we put up new content right here on this channel. So I'm flying solo here tonight. Brandon's taking the night off, but I'm here to do a review for AEW Dynamite for August 4th, 2021. So let's get into the show here. The show started off with MJF joining the commentary for the opening match, which is, of course, the third labor of Jericho. Chris Jericho versus Juventud Guerrera. Jericho must win by hitting a move off the top rope. This is their first match against each other since 1999. Like many Juvi matches throughout his career, there were spectacular moments interspersed with some baffling sloppiness and miscommunication. So right away, I thought that this match was very sloppy, especially in the beginning. Let's be honest here. This is Chris Jericho and Juventud Guerrera. These are two guys who have been in this business for over 20 years at this point, and they made many references to their match at Sturgis in 1998 in WCW. I mean, that was 23 years ago at this point. So to expect that they're going to have the style of match and type of, caliber of match that they had back in the day, it's asking a lot for these two guys. And it was clear early on here, especially Juvi was missing some spots here and there. Jericho was starting to show his age a bit. I mean, I believe he is 50 years old now. Things like that. But all things considered, I thought after the beginning of it, it got a little bit better toward the end, and the finish was absolutely spectacular. There's nothing wrong with that. It all boiled down to a spinning neck breaker and a thrust kick from Juventud. Got a 2 count. He kind of turned a power bomb attempt into a DDT. Then he hit the Juvi driver for a near fall. Jericho was doing like a cross body off the top. He even did one spot where he caught Juventud trying to go for a Hurricane Rana off the top rope, and he kind of jumped down and put him in the walls. So basically he was off the top rope, so he put him in the walls of Jericho. He almost tapped out there. Aubrey Edwards was doing a good job for whenever Jericho was trying to go for the cover and trying to say, no, you can't go for the cover unless you've done a top rope move. So they were definitely keeping that in the mind of the audience as well, and Aubrey Edwards wasn't going for the cover whenever he didn't do that. So I thought that was nice little storytelling they were doing in the match to remind everybody what the stipulation was for this match. Juvi kind of turned a powerbomb into an attempt to a DVT and hit the Juvi driver. Jericho hit the Judas effect, but he couldn't make the cover again. So he kind of stared at Aubrey, and she's like, no, you got to do it off the top. So Jericho climbed up to the top rope and hit a diving Judas effect to get the win. This was beautiful. I don't know how much Jericho had been practicing this move, but for him to completely spin in midair and then elbow Juvi right in the head, this was absolutely great. If he makes this part of his arsenal, I think this is going to be great. Now, I don't know if he's going to be able to pull it off as well as he did in this instance every single time, but this was spectacular. The match might not have been the greatest in the world due to two aging talents here, but I thought this finish looks absolutely great. So after the match, Wardlow attacked Jericho and hit the F10 on Juventud before hitting the Casualty of War on Chris Jericho. That's when MJF, of course, being MJF, grabbed the mic. He mocked the crowd and revealed that Wardlow is the opponent for Labor number 4, and MJF will be the special guest referee. Now, later on in the night, they showed like a graphic for the Labor of Jericho number 4, which will probably, I think it's taking place next week on Dynamite. And they said MJF would be at ringside. So is he the official here, or is he at ringside? He said during this promo he'd be the special guest referee, which to me, a lot of people were a little underwhelmed by this. They were saying, Wardlow, okay, whatever, but to me it's more of what you're putting Jericho through, not necessarily the opponent. Shawn Spears was the first opponent, but it was because he was going through a chairs match. Then you had the death match with Nick Gage, and then you got Juventud Guerrera where Chris has to hit a top rope maneuver. Now Chris has got to be able to get past a match with a very good up-and-coming talent in Wardlow himself, a big monster of a man. Plus, now he's got to figure out a way for him to get Chris Jericho to count the pinfall or the submission so he can advance to MJF himself. So to me, I always thought that we were going to get MJF and Chris Jericho, and I still do, somehow or another, probably at All Out. But here's the thing. I don't think that Jericho is winning the fourth labor, because I don't see, unless he somehow knocks out MJF and, does kind of like the old Stone Cold Steve Austin on Vince McMahon, where he makes him, count the 3 count by lifting his arm and making him count himself. You could go that route, I suppose. But if MJF is conscious, there's no way MJF is going to, give Chris Jericho the victory here, because he's going to protect his own, his own hide. So my prediction for next week is Jericho's going to lose this labor. Now how they get to MJF after that, I don't know. But maybe they do that route, and maybe Jericho does somehow defy the odds, and he somehow gets MJF. But this is definitely the intrigue to this to me is you're stacking the deck against Chris Jericho here, using MJF as the special guest referee. So in that regard, I like the storytelling they're doing here. We'll just have to see where they take it, though. So I'm excited to see what they do. Up next, we had the Lucha Bros, and Alex Abrahantes were asked where Pac was, as he's not at Dynamite tonight. Abrahantes implies someone was interfering with their travel, and that's when Andrade and Chavo Guerrero walked up, and Chavo talked about what it could be like if they worked for him, but the Lucha Bros were not having it. So obviously last week they talked about, Andrade was like going on about how, how was your drive in here, things like that, talking about the travel. And this week it appears he's messed with their travel plans and somehow got Pac to not be able to show up at the building. Now, that's probably not the real reason Pac wasn't there. It was, it could be a myriad of reasons. But so they're still trying to recruit the Lucha Bros here. Now, by the end of the night, they're definitely, kind of not really doing it in a way that I think the Lucha Bros would want to join them for sure. So I got a feeling this is just leading you to a feud, but who's to say? You never know that maybe the Lucha Bros, Penta and Phoenix, maybe eventually turn on Pac and join Andrade and Chavo here, but I just don't know if I see it. It might be like a double swerve, and maybe, Pac ends up joining Andrade. There's always that possibility too. We'll have to see where they take this. But so far, it's intriguing. But I want to see more. I don't think I've seen enough of the feud yet to know exactly what they're doing. But we'll see what happens. The Dark Order were with Tony Schiavone backstage. They were asked about losing the match last week, and Hangman Page walked up and apologized for losing the match because, Hangman, by losing the match, the Dark Order could not get an AEW tag team title match. But we're going to talk about that again here in a minute, too. The Dark Order were adamant that they will have Page's back, but Page suggested they go their separate ways. For now, we're done, he said. Page walked off, and Evil Uno said to give Page his space. So he basically told the Dark Order, just do as he asks, and let him have his space. Page talked like he wanted to, address the Elite situation and go on it on his own because it's something that has been brewing for a long time with him and the Elite. So we'll get a little bit more of that as the show progresses. Before the match, 2.0 and Garcia cut a promo that was hard to hear due to the mixing. As far as I could tell, they just talked about calling out top guys in Moxley, Allen, and Kingston. So, yes, so in this case, we get 2.0. They are the former Ever-Rise from WWE NXT. To be honest, I haven't seen a whole lot of Ever-Rise in NXT. I'm a little bit new to the NXT scene here on the channel, but I've been covering them since WrestleMania. They've been on there sporadically doing these little things like, hey, we got a website, and, doing these weird little things. They've not really been in the ring much, but I thought all things considered, they look really good here. It ended up being, they're now calling themselves 2.0. Matt Lee and Jeff Parker and Daniel Garcia made their AEW debuts tonight, and they definitely wasted no time. They called out three of the heavy hitters in Jon Moxley, Eddie Kingston, and Darby Allin with Sting at ringside here. Garcia and Allin kicked off the match with a cradle exchange. Lee tagged himself in and clobbered Allin, but Allin tagged in Kingston. Lee wanted a chop battle with Kingston, who was happy to oblige, and boy, Eddie Kingston lit him up. Eddie Kingston beat Lee down in the corner, but a cheap shot from Parker allowed Lee to chop block Kingston into the commercial break. Once back, nearly Kingston escaped to Moxley for the hot tag, but was cut off before he could reach him. Moxley had enough and took out Garcia on the floor. They brawled, but Lee was distracted by the legend Sting. So Lee kind of gets in Sting's face here. This was absolutely great because the camera is focused on these two guys, having a face-off on the outside. And from out of nowhere, Darby Allin used this distraction to perform a suicide dive through the ropes and took out Allin right in the camera angle. This camera angle was absolutely incredible because Allin just literally came out of nowhere and he hit Lee so hard because Allin, he doesn't care, man. He throws his body, to the wolves. I mean, he will just take a risk when it's unnecessary even. But in this case, I thought this was absolutely great. And Sting didn't even flinch. He just watched it happen right. I mean, literally a couple, maybe about a foot to the right, and Allin would have took out Sting. But this was absolutely great. I love this suicide dive that Allin did. Jon Moxley got a hot tag and took out both of 2.0. He hit the paradigm shift on Garcia, which was looked like he almost picked him up too high and dropped him almost in a suplex position or a brainbuster position, really. Then he tagged in Darby Allin, who hit the coffin drop for the win. So, yeah, I mean, I thought this was a great six-man tag. A lot of fun. The right guys won here. I know we've talked about on WWE. Like, maybe you should not beat the new, up and coming talent. Obviously, you don't want to debut them for a loss, but this is one of those situations I feel like you call out the three of the best in AEW. Obviously, you're not going to beat them. So if you're going to book it this way, which, you could argue maybe they could have had them debut against anybody else, absolutely. So you could actually absolutely argue that. But if you're going to book them against Moxley, Kingston, and Darby Allin, those three guys have got to win here. But here's the thing. We've talked many times on this channel as well that even if you do beat somebody, as long as they have a great showing, they can still get over. And I thought this was one of those situations where the three guys who are on the losing end here looked very, very good in their loss. So I think it's not going to hurt these guys really at all. It's not like they brought up a champion from another company and beat them on their debut. But these guys look good. I thought the match was a lot of fun, so I liked it for sure. I mean, like I said, you can argue about the booking of it a little bit here for sure, but I thought overall, it was just a fun match. Brian Cage and Team Taz cut a dueling promo video. Cage said he destroyed Team Taz, while Taz said it's better to be in the group than out of it. Okay, just kind of furthering this feud. Nothing major to write home here. But so apparently we're going to get more Brian Cage versus Team Taz. So part of me kind of wonders if it's a little played out at this point, but we'll see. Hopefully it ain't going to last too much longer. Just get Brian Cage out on his own, do his own thing, and let Team Taz move on to other things here eventually, I think. The Elite were being wacky with the basketball backstage, kind of playing off their Elite Squad, Space Jam, a new Legacy entrance they did last week. Gallows and Anderson are going to defend the Impact Tag Team Championships on Dynamite next week against the Dark Order. So this is kind of interesting to me. Obviously, first of all, you had Doc Gallows wearing what looked to be either Goldust's old robe or a robe like Ric Flair would have worn. So subtleties possibly that Ric Flair could possibly be showing up in AEW. Who knows? The Dark Order will be challenging for the Impact World Tag Team titles next week. Now, the stipulation last week during the 10-man tag that Hangman Page and the Dark Order lost was that if they were to lose, Hangman Page couldn't get his AEW World title shot, and the Dark Order couldn't challenge for the tag titles. Apparently that meant the AEW tag titles. So somehow or another, the Dark Order are challenging for the Impact tag titles next week. Not sure how I quite feel about this, because, I'm not sure what they've really done to earn. Like we've talked about that. So I don't know, but at least it's not the AEW tag title, so they are keeping to the stipulation for sure. And even the Young Bucks even discussed like who's left, who is there anybody who can challenge us? So they even brought that up for sure. Obviously, I think right now the number one ranked contenders is the Varsity Blondes, so I think they're sitting at a 16-4 record, so they will probably most likely be the next contenders. But whether or not they would be, pay-per-view caliber level of a challenger, I'm not so sure, but I'm sure on a Dynamite or a Rampage here before too long, we'll probably end up getting that tag team title matchup as well. Omega said that Page blew it last week, and now he's got no friends. Cutler cut down the net of the basketball hoop, kind of like in homage to like what happens when you win the championships and things like that. I also thought it was funny that in this promo, Kenny Omega, well, tonight in general, was wearing his Cookie Monster t-shirt, from Sesame Street. And, of course, Cookie Monster, I saw CM. It might mean absolutely nothing, but obviously we know CM Punk's coming to AEW. But it was just it was an outlandish t-shirt for somebody like Kenny Omega. But I thought this was actually pretty funny. I liked the t-shirt he was wearing. It was awesome. Christian Cage defeated the Blade with the Bunny. Christian Cage attacked before the bell. Blade quickly gained the advantage in the ring, but Christian came back with the right hands. Blade tried to flee, and Christian made chase, but was stopped by the Bunny, and she's like, what, you going to hit a woman? Christian ignored the distraction, though. Smart babyface. I like to see that. And sent Blade into the barricade. Back in the ring, Christian climbed the top turnbuckle, but Bunny grabbed his leg, so she's constantly getting involved here a little bit. That's when Layla Hirsch ran out and chased the Bunny to the back, because later on in the show, Layla Hirsch and the Bunny are going to fight for the number one contendership for the NWA Women's Championship. So nice little, preview of what's to come. But of course, after this, the distractions stopped. The distractions weren't a whole lot in this match, just toward the beginning to set up that match. Blade tried to use the distraction to take control, though, but Christian had it scouted. Blade then took out Christian with a rope rebound suplex ahead of the commercial. Once back, Christian avoided a corner spear and sent Blade's shoulder first into the ring post. He followed it up with a dive from the ring post to the floor. Back in the ring, Christian hit right hands followed by corner punches. He landed the drop down uppercut followed by a sunset flip for 2. Christian went for the kill switch, but Blade fought out, because everybody fights out of the kill switch seems like, and countered the tornado DDT into a power slam for 2. Blade hit a release suplex and a kick, then used the turnbuckle to distract the official and get the brass knuckles. Blade then walked right into a spear, though, giving Christian the win. So Christian wasn't waiting around for those brass knuckles to get into play. So I'm sure Brandon will appreciate that, because I don't think he likes Blade using the brass knuckles. But this pretty much was just to highlight Christian Cage here and obviously get him a win, which we're going to find out a little bit later is going to set him up for the number 1 contendership against Kenny Omega. We obviously knew ever since Christian got here that he'll probably eventually be challenging for the AEW World Championship, because they build him as such a big signing. They're going to have to at least follow through with that a little bit. Now, do I think Christian Cage is going to beat Kenny Omega? Absolutely not. I think the person to do that is still Adam Hangman Page. And for all you Adam Hangman Page fans out there, fear not, it's coming sooner rather than later, I think. I mean, they've been kind of pushing it back a little bit, so maybe a little bit later than sooner, but it's going to happen. I just feel like maybe AEW knew that CM Punk and Daniel Bryan, or Bryan Danielson, are coming to the company, and I have a feeling that they just did not want to overshadow Adam Hangman Page's AEW Championship win at All Out in Chicago with Punk and Bryan Danielson. So they're probably just holding off maybe a little bit longer, maybe to Full Gear, maybe around, November, late October, somewhere in there. So maybe it'll happen there. But fear not, I believe Adam Hangman Page will be the man to dethrone Kenny Omega. We're just going to have to wait a little bit longer, and that's fine. It's not something, I mean, I know it's been, a year and a half, 2 years they've been building Adam Hangman Page, but it's reaching that fever pitch, and I think before too much longer they are going to pull that trigger, and when they do, it's going to be a great thing, and they're going to create a brand new star in Adam Hangman Page, who is already over with the crowd. So they've done a great job with building their young up and coming roster here with Darby Allin, Jungle Boy, Adam Hangman Page. There's, the list goes on and on with some of these younger talents. You can argue some of them are former WWE talents as well, but they've done a good job with their homegrown talents on top of all that. So, all right. So after that, we had Santana and Ortiz, and FTR cut a promo talking about their match the previous week. Harwood said he almost watched his friend die, and Ortiz said this was far from over. So we're going to get this again, and probably, in a match probably that'll be better than that week, because obviously the injury that happened to Cash Wheeler, played a little bit into the finish there, and of course we didn't get to see exactly probably what they had planned. So we're going to get this again somewhere down the line here for sure. Probably, I would assume Santana and Ortiz get the win here eventually. And or maybe they set up a triple threat 3-way against the Young Bucks and make this for the tag titles at All Out. That's a match I'd like to see, either a 3-way or one of these two teams facing the Young Bucks next. Even though I think the other two teams, or these two teams, are on the top 5 for the AEW tag division. But obviously, like I said, I think we'll probably get Varsity Blondes before then, and they'll probably lose, and then the winner of this may get the opportunity. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. We had a Dr. Britt Baker promo. Her and Rebel were introduced by Tony Schiavone in the ring. Baker said it was right here in Jacksonville where Baker won the AEW Women's Championship. That's when Red Velvet's music played, and she walked out. She insulted Baker and said she wanted a piece of DMD. Baker beat Velvet in 3 minutes the last time they fought, she said. Velvet may have been enhancement talent before, but she's 22-4 now, and she's earned a shot. Baker accepted, and the match will happen in Baker's hometown of Pittsburgh for the AEW Rampage debut here. My only nitpick on this is I think she's like 3rd in the ranking. I think they got Thunder Rosa, but they're doing this thing with the rankings that sometimes just because they're number 1 in the rankings, that doesn't mean they're actually the number 1 contender. Usually somebody in the top 5 gets a shot. So it's a little inconsistent when it comes to their, rankings and their contenders and things like that. But at least she is in the top 5, and they made mention here that she has won 7 matches in a row since May. So she has been building wins, so at least in that regard, it does make sense. So she has earned an opportunity. I just wonder, maybe they just don't want to pull the trigger on Thunder Rosa yet. Maybe they're saving, obviously, because she's number 1 ranked contender. I don't think you want, and I think Ty Conti may be below her, something like that. So you don't want to pull the trigger on the big names yet until you get to maybe All Out or a big pay-per-view. So I get why they're doing what they're doing, but it is a little odd when you look at the rankings and you see Red Velvet, I think, at number 3, and she's kind of jumped the other two. So it is a little odd. I'm not going to lie about that. But I see why they do it. I think the rankings are just kind of there to kind of give you an idea. Okay, here's some guys or gals that are going to be in play for these belts. But when it comes to Lee Johnson here in a little bit, he's not in the top 5 at all. So that one throws me for a loop, and I'll get to that here in just a minute. Rebel tried to attack Red Velvet with the crutch, but Velvet had it scouted. Baker attacked and curb stomped Velvet before driving the crutch into her throat, which looked a little odd because it looked like Velvet even didn't know it was coming or whatever. She wasn't ready for it, so it was a little wonky. But I thought overall this was okay, setting up a Red Velvet versus Britt Baker match in about another week and a half here on Rampage debut. Andrade El Idolo was about to cut a promo backstage. Chavo found someone who's going to work for him. Fuego del Sol. Chavo needs Fuego to shine Andrade's shoes, but he wouldn't do it. Andrade had enough and attacked, tossing Fuego into a garage door. Chavo said that if the Lucha Bros keep working for Pac, they'll never be champions. So, again, they kind of, basically threatening the Lucha Bros here. So that if you're going to want them to join you, obviously they weren't going to do it voluntarily anyway, I suppose, but now you go in here and you just flat out threaten them. So, I don't know how you're going to coerce Lucha Bros to work for you unless you force it somehow. But yeah, I don't know exactly where this is going. We'll see. But apparently, since they attacked Fuego del Sol, since he's been kind of making a name for himself on Dark and Elevation, chances are we're going to be getting Andrade versus Fuego del Sol, probably on Dynamite, and another match for Andrade to be highlighted here for sure, kind of building up this feud a little bit more. So I'm looking forward to that match. I've heard Fuego del Sol has been doing some good work over there, so I'm interested to see what he does. Adam Hangman Page was about to speak to Tony Schiavone in the ring about why he's splitting up with the Dark Order, but the Elite interrupted. Omega suggested that Page could be out here to make a plea to rejoin the Elite, but Page denied that was going to happen. Omega mocked Page's relationship with the fans. He considered giving Page a shot, but said Page wouldn't fit in with the Elite anymore. He said, quote, "The Elite doesn't have losers in our group." Okay, wait a minute. You got Nakazawa and Brandon Cutler, which earlier in the preview or the promo that the Elite were cutting backstage during the basketball segment, Brandon Cutler tried to jump in and cut a promo himself, but they just kind of like, get back, shut up, so they've got losers in the group. But again, they're a heel, so he's a heel, he's going to act like they have no losers, and sort of thing, but they're their lackeys for sure, make no doubt about it. Page had enough and slapped Omega when the entire Elite's standing there, and Page is by himself. So he just slapped Omega knowing he was going to get his butt kicked here. He was quickly overwhelmed by the Elite and taken out with a magic killer from Gallows and Anderson. The Dark Order ran out to save Page, but Evil Uno and Stu Grayson stopped the entire Dark Order in the aisleway, basically saying, hey, he said he wanted space. Leave him alone. Let him fight this battle on his own. That's what he wanted. So they're, giving him his space as he asked. So but it was nice here because it showed that a lot of companies, when something like this happens to a babyface, I won't mention which company, but I think you all know who I'm talking about. If a babyface is getting beat down, where are their friends? They never, ever run out from the back to give the save. But the Dark Order wanted to save Adam Hangman Page here. But Evil Uno and Grayson said, no. He has to do this on his own. Let him do it on his own. Of course, he's getting beat down, 5-on-1 at this point? But at the same time, they honored his request, and I guess that shows how much they care about him. The Young Bucks then hit repeated BTE triggers on him. That's when Frankie Kazarian ran out. Again, not necessarily a friend with Page, really. I mean, to a degree he is, but he's the Elite Hunter. So it makes sense for him to run out and try to attack the Elite. But he was, of course, quickly beat down because he's only one man as well. So Frankie Kazarian needs some help here. I don't know exactly where they're going with this Frankie Kazarian thing because it's like he keeps coming out and trying to attack the Elite. And I understand why he's mad at him because he broke up the remaining the tag team between him and Christopher Daniels. So SCU. And so I understand his frustrations with the Elite, but I don't know exactly where they're going to take. What's the end game here with Frankie Kazarian? Is he going to take him out one by one, or just going to constantly be a thorn on their side until the Elite destroy him? I don't know exactly where this is going, but I'm interested to see more about what they're doing with that because it just seems like he randomly shows up to do that and he gets beat down. Omega crushed Page with a belt shot to end the segment, so clearly we are still going to get Hangman Adam Page and Kenny Omega. Now, how they get out of the stipulation from last week where Adam Hangman Page can no longer challenge for the AEW World title after he took the loss in the 10-man tag, I don't know. That's going to be interesting to see how they bring that in because obviously people for a long time have wanted Cody Rhodes to kind of renege on his stipulation to go for the AEW World title. Of course, by the end of this show, that's obviously, it sounds like it may never happen there, which is fine. Cody doesn't need to do that. But in this case, it'll be interesting to see how they come full circle and get Adam Hangman Page to get his title opportunity again, whenever that may be, because obviously Omega's not going to forget this. If assuming they book it correctly and they don't have, Omega just, all right, you can get a title shot. You got to address it in a logical way. You cannot just make that step and ignore it, because I mentioned on, NXT, even, the little steps, once you start, saying a stipulation counts, and if it does, and if you just flat out ignore it, that means the audience is going to start to slowly realize that none of your stipulations matter. So you've got to adhere to this, and I'm sure they will. I have faith that AEW will do it. Some other companies have not done it, and they've killed their stipulations and things like that in the past. So I'm hoping that this will go well, and I'm sure it will. I'll just be interested to see how they actually pull this off and actually make it make sense. So we'll see what happens. Dan Lambert of American Top Team cut a promo about Lance Archer. Apparently he's back after being destroyed by him a few weeks ago. He said he'd bring backup next week for something. So we'll see what he does. Apparently he's going to have Lance Archer in his sights a little bit based on what happened to him a few weeks ago, where he got demolished for basically running down AEW in this sort of thing. So whoever it is, better bring their working shoes on, because Lance Archer's not going to take whatever it is lying down. Absolutely. The current IWGP United States champion. TNT Championship, Miro versus Lee Johnson. So again, this is one of those things with Lee Johnson. I thought this was a very good match. Lee Johnson is definitely one of the more underutilized members of the AEW roster. I agree with that, absolutely. But here's the thing. Lee Johnson is not ranked anywhere in the top 5 for the singles division in the men's category. So exactly why is he getting a championship match for the TNT title against Miro? Not totally sure. Obviously, we all know Miro was going to win this match, as he does, as we're about to get into. So again, it's one of those situations where you maybe don't want to beat the top 5 ranked contenders at the moment until, you get maybe a more, bigger pay-per-view, kind of the same way they were doing with the women's division a little bit. But it is interesting. This is the worst case that I saw tonight, when he wasn't even in the top 5, and all of a sudden, title match. So, I mean, not saying he probably hasn't been getting wins and stuff on Dark or things like that, but to the casual AEW viewer who just watches Dynamite, it came off as a little, not sure why Lee Johnson's here. But that notwithstanding, they had a pretty good match here. Johnson ran right at Miro, but was immediately dropped with a shoulder tackle. So right away, Miro just asserts dominance here. Miro shrugged off some strikes and caught a diving crossbody, turning it into a slam. He called for game over, but Johnson rolled to the floor ahead of the break. Smart on his part. Back from commercial, Miro had Johnson locked in a bear hug before demanding more shots from Johnson. Johnson countered a pop-up into a DDT, but Miro popped up. Miro was wobbly, so Johnson laid in more strikes. He drop-kicked Miro to the floor and landed 2 straight tope suicidas, followed by a tope con giro. Johnson landed a diving cross body, but Miro kicked out at 1. Miro went for a German suplex, but Johnson flipped out and he hit repeated thrust kicks. Johnson went back to the top rope and hit a frog splash for 2. He tried to hoist Miro up, but Miro fought out and crushed Johnson with a high kick. Then Miro called for game over and locked it in for the ref stoppage here, and it was all over. Miro gave Lee Johnson some offense here for sure. Sold for him a little bit. Made him look good. Again, it was just one of those things I don't understand why he was in this match. But again, proper booking in my opinion. You don't want to beat Miro right now. So keeping him strong, and Lee Johnson, although taking a loss, he does get some shine here for looking good against the TNT champion. So nothing wrong with that. It was just a little weird why he was in the title match to begin with. But yeah, so I didn't think it was too bad. Next Friday, the announce team for AEW Rampage was announced, and I don't know if it's just next Friday or if it's the permanent announce team, but they said for the debut anyway, the announce team for Rampage will be Excalibur, Mark Henry, Taz, and of course, our favorite commentator, Chris Jericho, will be, I'm assuming Jericho may be a 1 week only, so it may be Taz, Mark Henry, and Excalibur for the foreseeable future, but we'll have to see what they do, but I got a feeling Jericho's a one-night deal, but we'll see. Christian Cage was backstage with Tony Schiavone. He has apparently been announced by Tony Khan as the new number 1 contender for the AEW World Championship. Christian was asked if he will back up Layla Hirsch after Hirsch ran interference during his match with the Blade, but Christian doesn't just have friends. He has, Christian said, she doesn't just have friends, she has best friends. He said he was going to offer to be your friend. He actually starts singing the Golden Girls theme song, "Thank you for being a friend," but he said he was just joking around. That's not what she actually said. She's basically implied that she's going to have the best friends out at ringside with her. Why he's singing the Golden Girls, I don't know. That was a little cheesy and odd. But he said he was in a good mood, so I guess he was just having a little fun. He came back to cement his legacy and win championships, he said. Christian's been known to stir a little shit, and he's not just good, he's elite, he said. So, again, here we are. We're going to get Christian versus Omega most likely at this point. And like I said, Christian's not going to win the belt. I don't think he should win the belt. But if you're going to bill him as one of the bigger signings, you've at least got to follow through with it and have him go through with this title match. Now, is this the match at All Out? I don't know, but I think if you're going to do CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, things like that at All Out, you can get away with doing Omega versus Christian Cage at that event. It doesn't have to be a bigger match necessarily, but you got to have other things on this card to fill in for the fact that you don't have probably a top, level AEW World Championship match for that show, which All Out is one of your bigger shows of the year. That may not be the case. Maybe it happens at the New York show or something like that they're selling out as well. So there's a couple different shows they could do this on. I don't think it's going to be on a random Dynamite, though. It'll probably be on a pay-per-view because Christian said he would be in Pittsburgh next week for both shows, Dynamite and Rampage. So there are opportunities to figure out a little bit more where they're going with this and exactly what show they're going to do the title match on. But we'll just have to wait and see. But I'm not so sure if it's All Out just yet or not. So all the people who are freaking out about, oh, God, it's a match that we all know Omega's going to win, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be at All Out. We'll just have to wait and see what they do moving forward. But yeah, Christian is the number one contender as of right now. Which makes sense. They've actually been building him with wins and stuff ever since he got in AEW. He's not been defeated yet. So they've been doing a good job of building that. So at least in that regard, he has earned the opportunity, which I'm excited. This is one of the things I love about this company. Their title matches, the contenders always earn the opportunities. And I think that's outside of Lee Johnson, we talked about earlier. But for the most part, I should say, they earn their opportunities. So, yeah, the occasional slip up, I guess, does happen. But, yeah. Next up, we had the NWA Women's World Championship #1 contender match. Layla Hirsch versus the Bunny. Layla Hirsch comes out with the best friends, Orange Cassidy, Yodo, I think is his name. Of course, Chucky T. Trent is still out. Or, of course, Chris Statlander was with him as well. And the Bunny came out with the Hardy Family Office as well. They traded forearms right away before Hirsch hit something of a tope to the floor. Hirsch targeted Bunny's arm, but Bunny pulled her hair to force a break. Bunny hit a backstabber, sending Hirsch to the floor before following it up with a running drop kick leading into the commercial. NWA World Champion Camille was shown at ringside. This woman is massive. Upon return, Hirsch hit a superplex. Nyla Rose was at ringside for some reason, and she and Statlander exchanged looks, so maybe we're setting up a feud there between them two as well. I guess she was just looking on, kind of observing, the women's competition and stuff, and of course Statlander caught her attention. They didn't really exchange blows or anything. They just kind of had a stare down. Hirsch hit repeated Germans before following them up with corner knees and a drop kick for 2. She locked on the cross arm breaker, but Bunny pinned Hirsch's shoulders to force the break. Hirsch hit a big knee strike, followed by missing her step-up moonsault, which was interesting because it was a beautiful moonsault, but she completely mistimed it, and it was completely nowhere near Bunny when she hit it, so that was a bit of a botch. They covered up for it, basically saying she missed it, and of course she did sell a little bit after that, and it was for a near fall after that as well. Hirsch fought out of a down the rabbit hole and went for the cross arm breaker again, transitioning to the center of the ring and forcing the Bunny to tap out here. So I thought the finish was pretty good. She had to roll through because the Bunny was locking the arm bar, and of course the roll through kind of broke the lock, and she was able to get her to tap out with the arm bar. I'm going to say this about Layla Hirsch. She reminds me of, she's definitely a shorter statured lady here. She reminds me a little bit of Johnny Hungy, kind of that bowling ball statue, anyway. So she's just a small, but she's built, she's very strong. So she reminds me a little bit of Ronda Rousey, a little bit in her fighting style, the arm bar notwithstanding, things like that. So, but I think she's a very underutilized talent. I like to see a little bit more of her, and obviously they feel the same way too, or at least in NWA and AEW themselves, because she's now going to be getting an NWA Women's Championship match against Camille. After the match, Hirsch invited Camille into the ring, and Camille walks into this ring, and she's easily about 3 feet taller than she is, or it feels like it for sure. She dwarfs Hirsch here, probably a foot or more taller, according to this article. They exchange words to the end of the segment, so again, she kind of held up the belt over her to kind of, they definitely highlighted the size difference here. So I don't know exactly when this match is going to take place. It talked like it would be on NWA's show Power, most likely, or something like that. Maybe one of their shows, pay-per-views or something coming up. So we'll see what they do. But yeah, I want to see more out of legit Layla Hirsch here on AEW Dynamite for sure. And hopefully we'll get more of her in the future. Jade Cargill and Mark Sterling cut a promo. Sterling said that Cargill hasn't been wrestling because they've been exploring other ventures. Cargill's back and ready to wrestle, and she's got a match this Monday on Elevation. The sky is the limit because Cargill's, quote, that bitch. All right, so they're just cutting more promos. You know, they're not really going a whole lot of places with Cargill at the moment. Hopefully maybe on Dynamite she can start to get, you know, some wins under her belt, and maybe they can start building her up proper, things like that. But these backstage segments, I don't know where they've been. You know, she's not been in the ring in a while, you know, but it could be just one of those things. They've been kind of putting other women in here on Dynamite. But, yeah, she definitely needs to be on Darker Elevation for sure. And I think that's what they're going to do with her for a bit. Next week's Dynamite lineup is, of course, Jericho's fourth labor, Chris Jericho versus Wardlow with MJF at ringside. So, again, they say here he's at ringside, but during his promo, Jericho said he was a special guest referee. So, is it more kind of like an enforcer type thing, like Mike Tyson did at the WrestleMania 14 with Shawn Michaels and Stone Cold Steve Austin? Is it one of those deals where he can influence the decision, or is he the actual referee? It wasn't really defined, but we'll have to wait and see what they do. I'm sure he's going to have some sort of ability to make a decision. Maybe he takes out the referee and he becomes the referee in the match. There's always that possibility, but I wish they would have actually defined it a little bit more here, because MJF said one thing, the graphic said another, and it was kind of like, maybe you should have kind of got that a little bit clarified. There was definite miscommunication here because the announcer said that MJF would be the special referee earlier in the show. So yeah, even the announcers were saying it. So you got to get that those screws tightened a little bit, and don't have that bit of confusion for sure. Nyla Rose versus Chris Statlander next week as well. So, okay, that's where the match they were setting up for next week. Impact Tag Team Championships and will be the Good Brothers versus the Dark Order, Evil Uno, and Stu Grayson. And they announced for the debut of AEW Rampage, it'll be the AEW Women's World Championship, Dr. Britt Baker defending her title against Red Velvet. So they're already working on next week's lineup, so that's great. And we'll see what else they do. Christian Cage said he'd be at both shows as well. So I'm sure we'll get some teases to some bigger events to come, especially on Rampage, because they want to, you know, hit it big on that debut. I would think they would have some sort of either surprise or something. Obviously, I don't think it's going to be CM Punk on the 13th, the next week on the debut, but the following week in Chicago, the scuttlebutt is, you know, CM Punk will be at that show, but we'll have to wait and see. It's either that or he'll show up at All Out in Chicago. One of the two shows I'm sure he will be at. But to me, again, to kind of, you know, put out there into the world, hey, Rampage is a show you got to watch. Having CM Punk on one of their early shows makes a lot of sense. So we'll just have to wait and see what they do. And if he's not on the debut for sure, you got to, you know, jump in with both feet and make a splash on the Dynamite or on the Rampage debut as well, I think so. All right, and that leads us to the main event of the night, and that is, of course, Malakai Black versus Cody Rhodes with Dustin Rhodes at ringside. No Arn Anderson this week. I didn't see him if he was out there. Black hit a leg. First of all, before we get into that, Aleister Black's entrance had some Undertaker turning off the light sayings, and then, of course, you know, had some, like, white dust and smoke on his Titantron, and then, of course, he had some white smoke coming out from him where you could just see his silhouette in the entrance ramp, things like that. Then they turn off the lights again, then you see him on the corner. He had this really cool mask. You just have to kind of see it it's hard for me to describe. Had some, like, antlers and things like that. It was really cool. Then the lights went out again. Then when they come back up, he's, you know, sitting in the middle of the ring in his Indian position, kind of like he used to sit at in his WWE appearances as Aleister Black. So I really like the entrance here. I really like what they're doing with him in his presentation. And, of course, you know, Cody come out to his normal stuff as well. And he gave a belt to a very young lady out there, and I'm sure she enjoyed that a lot. So that was awesome. Cody being ever the baby face for sure. Black hit a leg kick right away and looked to capitalize on that advantage. Cody went for the figure four, but Black broke it up by gouging at Cody's eyes. Cody came back with an enziguri, but Black took down Cody with a leg sweep and locked on a single leg crab. Cody surprised Black by going for a crossroads, but Black fought out of it by, you know, while he was in the position for the crossroads, he just lifted up his knees and struck him right in the head. That was a great counter, in my opinion. Cody climbed the ropes, but Black kicked out his leg, sending him flying through the announce tables. He really didn't kick out his leg. To me, it looked like he was kind of Cody was perched up on the ropes, getting ready to set up, but he was still kind of, you know, hunched over. And that's when Black climbed the rope, or, you know, ran up the ropes and then kicked him straight in the face, is what it looked like to me. And that sent Cody flying off. Of course, he fell through he kind of had to do this jump to kind of get, you know, the distance to reach the timekeeper's table. But this was a great spot. It got a great chant and a great reaction. Cody barely made it back into the ring for the 10 count as Aleister Black sat there in his, you know, Indian-style position waiting for him to return. Black then hit his spinning heel kick, formerly the Black Mass, to pin Cody in about 4 minutes. This was, for the most part, a squash. Cody got a little bit of offense in early, but after the table stuff, they went right to the finish. It was over. And not only did he pin Cody Rhodes here after the Black Mass, he didn't even go for a cover. Cody was laid out flat on his back. He just stood over him with one foot on his chest, and Cody didn't even attempt to kick out. He was lights out. It was over. So say what you want about Cody Rhodes. I know Cody Rhodes has kind of got this reputation among fan circles and things like that he doesn't put over some talent sometimes. He's beaten some up-and-coming superstars and things like that, especially when he was the TNT champion. But it's a little different scenario there. But in this case, Cody Rhodes put Malakai Black over and over big time here. He sold this Black Mass, and he was, this match really wasn't even close. It was very short, to the point. Malakai Black here wins this hands down in very convincing fashion. So Cody Rhodes did what he should have done. This is the correct booking call, especially with a guy like Malakai Black. Again, you can argue with some of these up-and-comer guys like Everrise, the 2.0, facing a well-known talent. They shouldn't lose to that well-known talent. But Malakai Black is a different scenario where he is a well-known talent from WWE coming over here, and we know the potential this guy has. So you've got to make him look strong from the debut, and they did a great job with it here. They did not carry and cross him, so I'm very happy about this. So Cody did an excellent job of putting the guy over. After the match, Shivani walked to the ring to interview Cody, and Malakai Black had already left. Cody talked about his early memories and goals in wrestling. He said he's had so much fun in wrestling. He talked about starting AEW and how people laughed at he and the Elite for starting it. Now AEW isn't, quote, an alternative. They are competition. So playing off the Vince McMahon line on the conference call. He didn't name them or anything like that. He just said they're competition. They're to be taken seriously, as they should be at this point. They're selling out big arenas and things like that. There's no reason to not think they're competition. But anyway, Cody's been lucky, he said. He loves those EVPs, and he will forever be tethered to them. He even made mention of the fact that they may have had some disagreements as EVPs. So perhaps the rumors are true that Kenny, Cody, and the Young Bucks maybe hadn't been getting along when it comes to some of the decisions of where AEW should be going and things like that. Now, this could have all just been promo. Maybe he's just using the rumor and kind of using it to his advantage here in the promo to kind of bring a little bit of what people will perceive as realism. But maybe it is. Maybe it actually is. And of course, anytime you're in a business venture like this, you're going to have disagreements with the people you work with, I would think, and people who are coming up with the ideas and things like that. So, but he was definitely playing this off like he was going to retire, no doubt about it. He said he'll always be tethered to them. With all respect to Daly's Place, though, he said, to me, this is the AEW amphitheater. And to be honest, over the last year with the pandemic and stuff, I can concur with that. There is no better place, he said. He thanked the fans as they have made his life special. Stunningly, though, Cody then took off his boot and saluted the audience. He was going to take off the second boot, though. Of course, they were trying to, the old, wrestling tradition is if you're going to retire, you leave your boots in the ring, and that's that, right? So he was definitely teasing a retirement here, which is kind of surprising. I know he's talked about how he wants to retire when he's about 40 years old. I believe he's 37, 38 right now, so there's a couple more years to go with that. So he definitely had me thinking maybe this was a shoot and maybe this is a real story they're telling. Now, by the end of this, I kind of feel like this is all storyline because as he went to take off his second boot here, Malakai Black returned and he took out Cody with a crutch that he had been using. He stood over Cody to end the show. So clearly, this is not over. We're going to get Malakai Black versus Cody Rhodes again. And what I think could possibly happen here is Cody Rhodes has kind of maybe lost that fire a little bit. So whenever they have this inevitable rematch, maybe he'll actually, get some more offense in here. It won't be quite as quick. And I don't know if it's something that Cody will win. By then, presumably Malakai Black will have other wins on his belt and things like that too. But I'm interested to see where this goes. But yeah, it sounds like, at least for now, the retirement of Cody Rhodes is not going to happen, but he definitely made me think it might happen. So we'll have to wait and see. Maybe he is kind of considering it, and maybe he's just going to run things in the back. Of course, now he's a new father, things like that. I'm sure you could bring that into the promos, talking about how he wants to be there for his little girl and, of course, his wife, Brandy. So there's always things you could do with that storytelling-wise. But, yeah, it might be a legit thing. Maybe Cody's thinking about, hey, I want to be able to be around and, healthy for my daughter and her future and things like that. So it's very well a possibility he may be thinking about hanging it up. And if he does, maybe it comes sooner rather than later. But this could all just be storyline. We'll just have to wait and see what's going on here. But it's definitely going to create a little bit of a buzz, especially in regards to Cody Rhodes. But yeah, all things considered, with Malakai Black, I thought they booked him very well here. And overall, I thought this was a very solid AEW Dynamite show. I thought last week's show was a little bit more entertaining. There were a few spots in this show where it kind of felt like it dragged a little bit, like maybe in a Christian match with Blade and things like that. But other than that, I thought the booking was pretty solid outside of the Lee Johnson getting a title match and the TNT title match opportunity. But other than that, I thought it was pretty solid top to bottom. So the real question here is, though, guys, what do you guys think about AEW Dynamite for August 4, 2021? Please comment down below. Let me know. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get all the notifications about when I put up new content right here on this channel. And until next week's Dynamite, everybody, take care.
Yeah, ready to go, man, lock and load. That's right, I swear to God that I can jump and roll. Yeah, I got shot and I ain't stopping, no. That's how I know that I'm unstoppable.